Yeah, hi everyone. I've only got a couple of minutes today, so I'm going to race through a few slides about a project I'm working on. That's me on Twitter. If you want to get in touch, just slide into my DMs. That's the best way to do it. This is not working. Yes, it is. What I'm talking about today is a project called Fab, which stands for Frontend Application Bundles, and it's the website is fab.dev. Basically, it's a container format that sits between the frameworks that you'd be authoring to build a website and the places that you might want to host that site. Now, I'm going to jump into really quickly about why that is important and a bit of a background about what I see as a problem in front end at the moment, which is that there's a big dichotomy between if you're rendering a static app and hosting a static app versus a dynamic one, right? And there's no easy ramp to move from one to the other. And part of the reason of that is that static and dynamic sites have different hosting platforms, different capabilities. And so generally, if you're building a site, you have in mind where that site is going to be hosted. And the effect and the different kind of capabilities and constraints of these platforms actually exerts a pressure on the kinds of apps we can build. So you can think about it basically as Netlify is so good that people want to build static sites in order to run them on Netlify, and therefore will try and find a way to fit things into static sites. Put another way, static hosting is so good that it changes how those frameworks evolve. The example being Gatsby, which is an incredibly successful and well-supported and well-run project with a big ecosystem and a big plugin library, has a hard constraint that everything must be able to be deployed static. Given a different, a different environment, they may be able to optimize further. Anyone who's worked on a decent-sized Gatsby site will know how slow it can be to compile once you start to get a decent-sized thing. The counterexample is a people called Next.js and a project called Next.js and a hosting platform called Now by a company called Zeit. They can control the whole ecosystem, and so they can optimize, they can do really exciting stuff, and they are doing really exciting stuff. But it's sort of an indictment on what we're at the moment, where only a company like this can do something exciting. The other thing is that even if you start looking into static hosting, you realize that there's actually a lot more to it that ends up kind of coming along for the ride. So putting a bunch of static files in a directory, you get to a point where there's a lot of things you actually do want to do that doesn't cover. So things like a redirect or a proxy or inserting some headers. So doing anything like advanced CSP headers and anything is just not really possible without getting very platform-specific logic. And in the future, the future versions of React is going to have a much greater emphasis on server rendering using their new streaming server rendering code, which I won't have time to talk about. But and also the idea that it's no longer React's vision or Facebook's vision for React to just dump everything onto the client and let it render. Now you can have this idea where the server and the client are kind of working in tandem to deliver the fastest possible experience. This is the only way the new Facebook.com is possible with React, is to start to lean more on the server and actually race the server and the client. So there's a lot of reasons why we want to get more dynamism into it. And my project, Fab, is an attempt to effectively give us a pivot point so that framework authors can concentrate on just supporting to a Fab, and then Fabs can run everywhere, and you don't have this pressure coming back from the platforms. The goal for Fabs is that any front-end project, including a full server-rendered app, should be able to run anywhere you can run JavaScript, which is not the same as anywhere that you can run Node. Come talk to me if that is interesting to you. A Fab itself is just a zip file. It's got two components. One is a web-packed server.js. The other is a directory of everything else, which is guaranteed immutable, so you can host it efficiently. It can be deployed as a single monolithic thing to a platform like Heroku or Docker or anything that can handle it, or you can split them up and deploy them separately. So with my last couple of minutes, I'm going to just demo where the project's at the moment. This is Next.js running on Cloudflare Workers, which is the hardest use case for Fabs. This is something that's not really possible without using something like Fabs. So I've got a pre-recorded demo here, which hopefully will play. Please play. There we go. Showing that this is from a talk. I didn't have time to re-record it. So this is generating a brand new Next.js project, showing that the only thing that you need to do is to add one one small change, or two lines in a config file, to generate a fabbable Next.js config. You then go and compile. Basically, you do a normal build. This is one thing that at the moment all the Fab ecosystem runs on the output of an existing build. So it kind of secondarily compiles it and zips it up ready for a Fab. And there it is. That's basically it running and generating this Fab file, which is a zip file. And for a brand new Next.js app, ends up being about 300K. And then another command line thing will run, which I'll just skip because it's taking too long. And then it ends up running. Oh, that's not going to work, is it? Oh, here we are. And then that's Next.js running on Cloudflare Workers. Cloudflare Workers is a new platform. It doesn't run Node. It only runs JavaScript. It runs in 200 locations worldwide, and it's instant to deploy to. It's one of the most exciting hosts to happen in the front-end space. And so being able to run basically anything on it is a big deal. That's me out of time, so I'm not going to talk about the particulars, except to say that if you're interested in this, come talk to me, because at the moment I'm working on the final V1 release, and trying to get your app to compile into that format is part of that job. So if you want to follow along, fab.dev, fabspec on GitHub, or hit me up. Thank you very much.